eat it up. Go play okay, 3, 2, 1. You know I'm the hottest, you ain't never.
Alright, you guys get the idea, but it's no secret that the MCU is in serious trouble, with a serious drop in quality in Phase 4 bleeding into Phase 5 with no end in sight. I mean, just look at the lineup for Phase 5. Is anyone excited about any of this? The Marvels? Ironheart? I can't say I am, which is pretty sad, because this is the first time, and as far as I can remember, that I haven't been excited for the MCU or what's to come next. After Avengers Endgame, we were promised more expansive and greater stories. And with the rights of the X-Men and Fantastic Four returning to Marvel after Disney bought out Fox, I genuinely believed it. But instead, we just got boring Disney Plus shows and mediocre multiversal movies. I don't want to sound too harsh, because I genuinely don't want the MCU to fail. At one point, I was a major fan, going to opening night showings and watching the Comic-Con announcements of the upcoming films. I remember how excited everyone would get when the MCU movie phases were announced with each upcoming movie slate for each phase. But come on, Kevin, you're going to top Avengers Endgame with She-Hulk, Agatha Harkness, and Echo? I'm all for equality, but this is just getting sad. But before I move on from the MCU completely, I thought I'd make a point to rewrite phases 4 through 6 and how I would envision it, just to show that a fanboy on his lunch break can do a better job than the entirety of Disney.
Fine. I'll do it myself.
Instead of the Multiverse Saga, we're doing the Cosmic Saga. Now, please excuse the PowerPoint, as I'm literally making this in my car during my lunch break, and just pretend that these are the Comic-Con panels that the MCU uses for their big announcements when they go through each movie slate in the phases. And for each phase, I'm just going to touch on my general goals that I would give the directors and the movie writers if I was this Kevin Feige figure overseeing the entire outline of this saga. With number 1, I want to establish the Celestials and the mysterious Big Bad. We're not going to give away the Big Bad early on, so we don't have another situation like Kang, where we rested the entire franchise on a single actor, and if he commits domestic violence, the entire franchise is ruined. Also, we're going to have a big twist at one point to show that we are involving the X-Men, and we're going to finish Phase 4 with a Fantastic Four movie. The marketing just makes itself. I don't know why they didn't do it. Okay, so each slide is indicative of a year. So this is going to be 2021. And for the sake of quality over quantity, I'm limiting each year to 4 projects max, regardless of if it's TV shows or movies. And just keep in mind, the first 2 slides may look a little similar. I'm just consolidating what I liked most in Phase 4 and trying to make it work with my overarching story. So for Phase 4, we're going to start out in 2021. And I'm going to keep these 4 projects. I like Shang-Chi pretty good. WandaVision and Spider-Man, thought they were all solid. But the Eternals, I'm changing. I'm making that an 8-episode miniseries, similar to that of like MCU's Game of Thrones. This way we can flesh out the characters more, and we can set the groundwork for the Celestials, as the Eternals will have a big part in the Celestials' overarching story and playing into stuff like Galactus later on. Okay, so these projects are going to focus on the aftermath of Endgame and the blip, with obviously Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Have Baron Zemo be the only villain. He works well enough as a villain. You don't need that annoying girl. Loki and Wakanda Forever, I'm not really touching. In the Doctor Strange film, give Doctor Strange his own film with its own character arc and growth without cluttering in with Scarlet Witch. She'll get her own project later on. But give his movie its own genre, like its own horror movie feel. I think that'd be really cool and set his movies apart if they were horror movies. Alright, as we come to the end of Phase 4, we got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, followed by the Scarlet Witch movie. Elizabeth Olsen's getting her own movie as Scarlet Witch. I think she's a great character, and I want to see the aftermath of her mental breakdown of losing her children from the events of WandaVision. We have Sam Wilson's Falcon, Doctor Strange, and then Clint and the Hulk, and maybe 1 or 2 other of the new Avengers team that we are seeing come together to try to help her as she deals with this trauma. I really want this film to not have necessarily a good guy or a bad guy, just Scarlet Witch descending into madness as she tries to deal with her loss and the Avengers doing their best to help her, but her eventually turning to somewhat evil. At the end, she's going to sacrifice herself. As she's so strong, she can bend reality around her, and she transports into the X-Men universe. Scarlet Witch, Elizabeth Olsen, is going to be the bridge between the Avengers and the X-Men, but I'll get into that later. Then, after the Scarlet Witch film, we have the Hawkeye TV show, whereas it's Clint Barton's last Marvel appearance as he hands over the torch to Kate Bishop. I want this one to be much more focused on the Ronin 5 years between Infinity War and Endgame, where he was Ronin, basically killing all those mobsters and mafia and all that. I think that'd be really interesting to see him deal with that and the repercussions. And finally, we're going to have the Fantastic Four movie to end Phase 4 as the finale. We're going to keep it much more focused on the Fantastic Four, just establishing them as characters. And no Doctor Doom yet. We're going to build him up, but we'll save him for later. It's same thing with Galactus and the Silver Surfer. But it's just give me a good Fantastic Four story. Make me fall in love with these characters. All right, so the major outline or the guidance I would give to the directors and writers of Phase 5 would be to utilize the Skrulls to expand the cosmic era of the MCU and build up the Celestials. Also, again, Elizabeth Olsen is going to be the bridge between the X-Men, the Fox X-Men, and the Avengers X-Men. And also, we are going to utilize the Fox X-Men, like Michael Fassbender's Magneto, James McAvoy's Professor Xavier, and of course Hugh Jackman's Wolverine once we get to him. I just think it makes the most sense to keep back the characters that we've seen, because when we do a full reboot, then you can bring back all the characters all at once. But again, we'll get to that. All right, starting off Phase 5, we have the third and final Ant-Man film. This won't be Quantumania with Kang. I just put it there because I couldn't find another picture. But this will be a smaller scaled Ant-Man film with MODOK as a central villain. For basically all the solo films, or the end of the trilogies especially, I don't want to confine the writers to have to encapsulate everything from the grandeur scale of my saga. So just let them focus on finishing out the story, giving the characters justice by finishing their character arc. Following the third and final Ant-Man film, we have the Nova TV show, which I'm really excited about. It would follow the intergalactic police force we met in Guardians of the Galaxy 1. The opening scene would be Thanos decimating Xandar as he steals the Power Stone, and how the police force, the Nova Corps, deal with the repercussions of Avengers Endgame and the main antagonists of the show, the Skrulls, and how they're infiltrating planets, impersonating people. And at the end of the show, we have our main character turns into the superhero Nova. And again, this would build up the Skrulls. Then we have the Daredevil Disney Plus show, which of course is going to be gritty and dark. Same thing as the Netflix show. Just bring in the same creative team from the Netflix show and let them do their thing. And to end the year, in the fall of 2024, we're going to have the final send-off for Chris Hemsworth as Thor. This would be a movie that follows Thor as he mentors a pair of young Asgardian brothers that stowed away with him on his travels throughout the universe. The brothers remind him of himself and Loki when they were kids. This is going to be a Thor that's immortal and invincible, but he suffered so much loss. His family and friends, and now his fellow Avengers, Iron Man and Captain America, are gone. How does a god like this deal with PTSD, tackle mental health, what it means to persevere and keep fighting when everyone around you is fallen? I want to see a really in-depth and personal look at Thor, something that would do him justice on his final film. Definitely not doing Love and Thunder. I want something more like a Logan-style send-off, something Chris Hemsworth could really sink his teeth into, and a good send-off. Starting out 2025, we have the third and final Deadpool team. Again, let Ryan Reynolds and his team have complete creative freedom to bring that character full circle with their own trilogy, with maybe just one or two minor references that help introduce and break the fourth wall, get the audience accustomed to the idea of the X-Men and the Fantastic Four joining the Avengers. All right. Following that, we have a Scarface-style Doctor Doom movie. I think this would be awesome. Give the villain his own movie. Not sympathetic, but give Doctor Doom his own movie to build up the Fantastic Four universe that we're going to expand into. Then, following that, we have Spider-Man Home Alone, the fourth Spider-Man film. It's Tom Holland's franchise. And again, I would love for this to follow the events of Daredevil, maybe have Spider-Man a more of a street-level type setting where he's just battling the crime bosses of New York City. Maybe have one or two smaller like street-level heroes join him. Definitely Daredevil. And finally, to bring 2025 to an end, we'll have a Fox X-Men Disney Plus show. This would be a show centered around Magneto and his Brotherhood of Mutants, and have him stumble across Scarlet Witch as he introduces her to the world of mutants and tries to give her guidance and mentors as she deals with the fact of, is he a villain or is he genuinely trying to help? I think Michael Fassbender and Elizabeth Olsen would be awesome in the same show, and love to see that dynamic. So the Young Avengers Disney Plus show, as well as the Thunderbolts film, are each going to be about assembling the respective teams and combating the invading aliens of Earth, specifically the Skrulls, and what's going on with the Skrull-Kree war and the politics of that, as well as building up the secret invasion, the big climactic film of Phase 5, whereas Nova warns Captain Marvel and Nick Fury of the Skrulls who are infiltrating the world's leaders, and they have to reassemble the Avengers team. It's going to have Shang-Chi, Black Panther, Captain America, Captain Marvel, Nova, Hulk, maybe one or two other characters, but it's going to be a big, massive, intergalactic war that's taking place on Earth. I think that could be pretty cool, and we're absolutely recasting Captain Marvel. I don't want Brie Larson. I don't care who you get a wet mop, anyone but Brie Larson. And then finally, we're going to have the X-Men film. Just give the Fox X-Men a good, solid film. Honestly, they're overdue for one since Days of Future Past. And have a big emphasis on Scarlet Witch and Professor Xavier, and just her dealing with Magneto, Professor Xavier. Which side is she on, good or bad? I think this could be a cool movie right before the big climax in Phase 6. Okay, my big guidance for Phase 6, at least the beginning of it, to these writers of these films would be to start consolidating the characters, right? So, for example, with the Young Avengers, Thunderbolts, all these floating characters we have, I want to start consolidating into teams or not using them, or just bringing them together in these next few films in order to establish them for the big finale. Following that, we're going to set up the Celestials and Galactus as well as the big bad of Phase 6. And then, of course, we're going to have our big finale, which is going to include lots of different multiversal characters. All right, Phase 6, we're going to start out with the third and final Doctor Strange film. Again, a horror film. I love it to be more like cosmic horror. I love for them to do something with that and explore the different dimensions and maybe slightly build up to the idea of these celestial giants and just how grandeur they are. Then we have the Eternals Season 2. Again, we're consolidating the characters. So I'd like to see Nova interact with the Eternals, or maybe Captain Marvel, or hell, even Ant-Man. Just have some of the characters interact with the Eternals and start consolidating all these characters. And so that way when we get to the big finale, we know where everyone is. The second Fantastic Four film is going to focus on the Fantastic Four trying to prevent Galactus from consuming their Earth. However, at the end of the film, they're going to fail as Galactus consumes their Earth, and we get to see Galactus and just how devastating he can be when he destroys worlds. The Fantastic Four are able to escape due to escaping into the negative zone when Reed Richards saves them, and they have to go to the other universes to try to stop Galactus from swallowing the Avengers in the X-Men's universe. Finally, we have the Silver Surfer Disney Plus show, which will be a short mini-series, 4 or 5 episodes, just explores the Silver Surfer and his time serving Galactus, and maybe delve a little bit deeper into his character. Maybe a little cosmic horror too. That'd be pretty cool. Let's see a little bit more of the galaxy. All right, starting 2028, we have Secret Wars 1 of 3, which is going to be marketed as Avengers vs. X-Men. This is going to be a 3-part movie finale. So this is going to follow the Fantastic Four sequel, as the Fantastic Four have left their universe after it was destroyed in searches of other universes to help them and save these universes. They travel to the X-Men and Avengers' different respective worlds or universes, each individual one, and they warn them of what's coming. However, this puts the Avengers and X-Men at odds with each other, as they end up fighting like in Civil War. While this is going on, the Fantastic Four team up with the Eternals and maybe a few other characters like Spider-Man or Ant-Man in search of a weapon to kill Galactus before he arrives. They are successful. However, on killing Galactus, once he arrives in the universes, it unravels the entire multiverse, sending all the characters in all different directions like a giant kaleidoscope. Again, I think this would be really cool to allow for stories that have like no consequences, like seeing a movie with Marvel Zombies or seeing something like World War Hulk. Something it would be hard to get in a continued universe, especially if it was like rebooted. So this would be a great time to just really get creative and explore those options. Then we could have a Deadpool Wolverine film, which is going to be Wolverine and Deadpool on a road trip through the X-Men multiverse, collecting heroes like Patrick Stewart's Charles Xavier, Ian McKellen's Magneto. Of course, you could have Deadpool breaking the fourth wall, and hell, you could even have like Ghost Rider on there. I'd love to see some of the other universes outside the MCU as they explore it. And then we're going to do the same thing after with the next film, the Spider-Verse film, where it's going to have Tom Holland. Instead of the other Spider-Man coming to his universe, he's going to theirs. So he's going to go to Tobey Maguire's universe, Andrew Garfield's. We're going to meet the new Miles Morales and Tom Hardy's Venom. With the villain, bring back Norman Osborn. I loved him in Spider-Man No Way Home. Would love to see more of him. All right, we're at the final year. So we have Avengers Secret Wars Battle Worlds, where the MCU characters are forced to fight on battle worlds for the entertainment of the Celestials, while the multiversal characters that we've been assembling in Phase 6, like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, Patrick Stewart, Tom Hardy's Venom, Reed Richards' Doctor Doom, all team up to save the MCU characters. And along the way, they encountered the original 6 Avengers. Like, it's Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans. How awesome would it be to have Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man team up and fight alongside Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and Hugh Jackman's Wolverine in a battle? I mean, that would be so sick. Take my money. And then at the end of the film, Doctor Doom betrays the team of heroes and takes whatever MacGuffin it is, Infinity Stones, whatever, betrays them and restarts the universe in his own image. With the final film being an absolute war, like it would just be like a war film, but with superheroes. Like have it be like different battles, like Saving Private Ryan, but it's all like the type of battles at the end of Avengers Endgame, but with all different heroes. Give everyone their own moment, and the finality of the film is obviously them winning. Maybe have Tobey Maguire or someone special like that sacrifice themselves, and we have to reboot the entire universe. At this point, the MCU would be 22 years old, and I think it only makes sense to restart the continuity because this would be like almost 100 films in, and it'd be really hard to keep bringing in new fans if you had to tell them they had to watch 60, 70 films in order to understand this new one. So that would be my pitch for how I would restart the MCU. I give it maybe 2 or 3 year break and then just completely recast all the characters. And this way you could have the Fantastic Four, X-Men, and Avengers all in one universe, completely recasted and start fresh. So you could have there's so many stories you could tell now that you have all the Marvel characters assembled. Let me know what your thoughts are on this new story. If you liked it, if you didn't, what you'd change. If there were any projects that you would be interested in seeing, if there are any that you absolutely wouldn't. Please let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. I really appreciate you listening. And as always, we'll see you next time.